No, thank you very much, Chairperson, and good evening, General.
Purpose.
Thank you very much, Shamas. I think I just want to make a follow-up on the last question from Honorable Sangun. This issue about the so-called Zulu war. When I heard about it, my impression was that maybe it might also be a reference to Mkhwanazi and Sbiya, because I thought Sbiya can also be somebody from KZN or who's a Zulu or something like that. But you are raising another version of it. What's your comment on that?
Yeah, well, my belief was that perhaps it's amongst the people that are talking about the Zulu war, because although Sbiya being the Zulu, but is not necessarily from KZN. It is that which I thought politically between the two heads, a head and a former head of this institution, that are perceived to be in loggerheads, that seems to be suggesting that there is issues that are happening in here. And what is worse is that the two individuals that are seen in the police that have been thrown into this is myself and Gerald Khumalo, who are both from KZN. That seems to suggest something like that. But yeah, those are the things that I think about. It might be.
I just want to take you back a bit to the comment you made about, and maybe I know you have somehow commented on this issue. You do not have to go into detail. The migration of people from the police to IDEC and the impact that has had in relation to the work of IDEC and probably the relationship between the police and IDEC. In your knowledge, the people who left the police to become employees of IDEC, were some of them already engaged in some kind of a fight of one form or another with their former colleagues or with their colleagues before they departed from police to IDEC, which could have therefore sustained that and maybe heighten it by the fact that they are now at IDEC, some kind of a watchdog of some sort towards the police, and therefore might be exploiting that authority in furtherance of their own differences with their former colleagues.
Well, I'm not quite sure exactly about the people that have moved from the police to IDEC and the beef they had with the police, except I have heard of some talks about one member at IDEC with Gerald Pahlane, because it looks like at one stage they were all working, I don't know if at forensic, but the other one was at the Eastern Cape, Pahlane was at the head office. But there were always issues that I heard about that involves, but to what extent, I never really investigated. But that is the only person that I know to having had issues. The other one that is with IDEC is the one that is an investigating officer on Gerald Khumalo and his team. That's Padayaji. Padayaji is an ex-crime intelligence member with a lot of controversial things within, including the illegal listening of Gerald Cele back in the days when he was still a general in the police, when he was still a national commissioner. Illegal interception of his phone, mispresentation to the judge. But that Padayaji left the police and told he retired. And then he resurfaces at IDEC. And his interest or his involvement in this is focused on intelligence. That's why he's a lead investigator on people at intelligence. The court says, if you want something at crime intelligence, go via Padayaji. So he's the only person, but whether he had any beef with anyone, I don't know. But I know that perhaps he still wants the control of the things that he had control over before he retired. And I know of the members of IPED that left IPED and went to IDEC. Whether some of those were in the police before, I do not know. Whether some of those were involved on issues against the police or investigation against the police, That is a fact that they moved with case dockets from IP to IDEC. And they continued with those investigations at IDEC, which is supposed to be an IP docket, but it landed at IDEC. So maybe if we do an audit of the dockets at IDEC, and then they must explain to you how those dockets got there, whether did they follow the law, are they part of what the IDEC is established for, you'll be able to get evidence.
You know, when we had Mr. O'Sullivan, as you would have noticed, very, very flamboyant, very colorful in terms of what he says and how we put it. But one of the things that he said, which as I listened to him, I said, when we see you, I'm going to pose that question to you, was that at some point you took over a particular company, which he says was owned by a dubious character, which in his own view, somebody at your level of leadership in the police would have known about and possibly avoid a possibility of taking over a company from a previous owner of that caliber. So, and I think from judging from what he was saying, he wanted to make an insinuation about the extent to which you are either reckless, if that is true in terms of what happened with that company, or you acquired that company from a character you knew is not a good character, but nevertheless you proceeded, because it may very well be that you have some link with that kind of a character. So I thought when we see you, we must ask you to comment on that issue, because it is obviously worrying if it's anything to go by.
Yeah, well, I listened to Mr. Paul O'Sullivan. I think, honorable members, what you should be worried about is why will Paul O'Sullivan come and talk about the private things that are involving police officers? He went and he did on information about all of us. That's why he could tell the National Commissioner owns this property and that property and that property. He went to dig things about me. The only thing that he found that maybe he thought, okay, well, maybe this is questionable, was that company. So how did he get to go to that extent to finding information? What is it about? What gives him the right to do that? This is what I expect these parliamentarians to take action against, because that means the systems that are supposed to protecting individuals out there from their privacy is not working. If a person can do that and he comes and sits in this parliament and he displays that he has done it and he walks out here without being held accountable, that's a concern, because the private is invaded. Here I am left with today's the 18th of March. 12 days time, my contract ends. I knew that back in 2021 when I took that contract, that is going to end of this March. So in my effort to try and prepare for an exit in the organization, on what do, I engage with accountants that are advising me on what I should do next. So one of the advice that perhaps I must consider buying a company, a chef company, that can help me to set up opportunities going forward. So it's one of the companies they recommended to me when they did some research to establish, and there's one of the company that's on the chef company dealing with trade and investment that I must consider looking at. So I then take over that company, buy it off. I don't see anything wrong on the character of the person, because I never really went into an investigation that Paul O'Sullivan did. So I buy the company, I don't even know the person. So it's a chef company that gets acquired, and I pay for it, and the membership, the directorate is changed. And I don't even use it, because the company I'm trying to get for the future, try to set up something for the future. But then I felt, no, well, I don't think I'll be able to use this company now. So I closed it. After closing, Mr. Paul O'Sullivan went to dig, what do I have? He discovered that I once owned this company. That's why he came to you and he spoke about a company that I've already closed. And I had bought it, but I then since closed it. I didn't close it because there were some dubious things on it. I closed it because I felt that there's no need for me to have it. So that was the reason. So what he came and he presented here is not true. and there's no criminal activities that I'm associated with the company. But again, I want to ask you to investigate what gave him authority to do that, and how did he acquire that information? Because if it's not taken to task with it's going to be abused, and I believe it has already.
No, General, I can give you an assurance that the conduct of Mr. O'Sullivan in the security cluster in our country, the police in particular, left so many questions for us, and it leaves a lot to be desired. And I don't think that at the conclusion of our work, we would not take any position with regard to individuals like him, who, for whatever reasons, immerse themselves into the police service and do so to a very large extent in a negative way, in a way that either creates or sustains existing problems. So I do want to give you an assurance that when we wrap up our work, it's inevitable that we must have an opinion about such characters and what needs to be done legislatively to protect that environment from possible abuse by characters such as those ones. But I mean, be that as it may, I would imagine that if you had not changed your mind, you kept the company and you proceeded with it, and you discovered this information later on, you were obviously going to be worried about it if there is legitimacy to it, and probably you were going to have to change your mind and look for another company, I suppose.
That's correct.
Okay. Somewhere I read that, I can't remember on which of the papers before us, affidavits or submissions that were made, and that at some point you presided over an inquiry which was dealing with some matters of discipline relating to General Khan.
That's correct.
That he got acquitted.
Yes.
With the benefit of hindsight, with what you know now about Mr. Khan, would you say that that acquittal would have been the same, could be the same if you were dealing with him today? Or there may be other factors that influence the facts that appeared before that committee, which resulted in that particular conclusion?
I would have done the same. In a matter of fact, before I went for that hearing, there were already negative stories out in the media as a result of me presiding over his case. And I already knew that he is involved in one way or another on the wrong that led in such, which he came to apologize to me about whatever that came out after I acquitted him. And I still told him that I don't want to be part of that. We're here dealing with a case that was put before you, and the evidence that was presented, he did not do anything wrong. I gave him credit. I even said he should have been applauded by the organization for what he did.
You know, General, some of us were very worried when Mr. Nkabinde was very casual about your trip to Richards Bay or Mpange, that site.
Yes.
We're very worried about that level of casualty on his part. And when you are saying today, the evidence at your disposal, beside the information, the knowledge you have, because we're part of this, is that, and that can even be corroborated by a tracker information. I wanted to ask a question: would you be comfortable to share that information with the ad hoc committee? Because I think it's, well, maybe if it's not the ad hoc committee, if for some reasons it may be a problem with the ad hoc committee, it could be another committee that deals with sensitive matters. You know, the reason why I'm raising that matter is because your intervention in this regard completely changes the storyline that we were led into by Mr. Nkabinde. Because now the trip, according to you, is right from point A to point B, as opposed to point A, point B, point C. Because he's the way he narrated the story and your journey. I mean, when he uses the term a boy's trip, it it has certain connotations, which I'm sure you understand. So that's why I'm asking the question, in order to consolidate the evidence we are putting before us in challenging his assertion, would you be comfortable that that information become accessible?
Honourable Member, I am a citizen in this country, and I know that information can be private, but some information is public. You only need to take an ID number of a person to punch it, and you get all the profile of the things that the person owns. So a vehicle is one of those. For me to hide and say I cannot give this committee the details of that vehicle would be wrong. For transparency, I'll hand over. It is not my car, I must disclose that. It's my wife's car. She controls the tracker. I've asked her to throw me the track, and she went and threw the track and she gave it to me. So you can have it. I don't think it's a problem. I don't think she will have a problem in sharing that either. But the tracker will show you that we left the address that Mohodi put on his statement on that particular date, and we stopped at Mr. Mkunu's residence at Mpangi. We switched off, we went in, we drank coffee, we ate cookies. We greet each other, friendly talk, back into the car. We drove from there, we stopped in Durban. I was a driver.
No, I think, Chair, I'm raising that matter because I do remember you said the tracker is from a vehicle of your wife, and she is not before us. So we can only rely on you to engage with her to agree for that information to be made available. And I was asking precisely because I know the things relating to tech and all of that will somehow involve identity information of an individual involved. But if you say it can be made available, I think we'll appreciate that because it addresses a particular issue with regard to the purpose of the trip from Durban to northern Durban. I think the next issue I wanted to just to verify it has to do with at some point I remember you were inviting SBIA to come to the awards in KZN. And you know, sometimes because we are talking to you as police officers, one of the things that one has learned is that it's not everything that happens which is as we see it. Some of the things are happening not in a way that ordinary people, civilians like ourselves, who are not police officers, who are not trained there, will understand in the way in which, and I will tell you why I'm making this point when I'm asking the question subsequent to this one. But your invitation of SBIA to attend the awards, was it just an invitation?
You talking about the police awards?
Yes.
I did not invite him. It's national awards that were held in Durban.
Oh, it was national awards. So he was going to be attending because it's part of the national program.
Yeah. I invited the entire management and the police chiefs to an excursion that I was organizing. So he joined the excursion that I was hosting, but he was there for the Excellence Awards. That is a national event. I did not invite him on that one.
Okay.
I'm not sure, maybe he said I invited him for Durban July either, because I spoke to him before Durban July, before the July 6th.
Mm. No, I don't remember him saying that. And then the meeting with Sinon, General Sinon, and Major General.
I'm going to invite this commission, this ad hoc committee, to start getting used to using the constitutional titles.
Okay.
So that you don't get confused much about this general's rank. Say the commissioners, not.
Commissioner. Okay. But that meeting with Mr. Sinon, I think it's even safe to say Mr. Sinon and Mr. Matala. I can't remember who said to us that meeting was in one of the units at the Pearls Hotel, and that person was making a conclusion on the basis of how easy it was to access whatever that was available in that room for consumption. And the conclusion was to the extent that, this is Mkwana's flat or apartment. I don't know if you have commented on that since you are back with us today.
Yeah, yes, I did speak early this morning, and I tried to describe the size of that apartment, the living room, between the dining room where we were seated, the lounge where the TV is with only one couch, that's how small it is, and the kitchen, a small kitchen that is there. So I did explain to the members that if from one point to another in that room, it will not be more than 5 meters. That's how small it is. And in one bedroom. So if somebody were to say, if Nona said, at times I will go to the bedroom, then you will have an excuse of saying he didn't hear what we were talking about. But if he claims that he had gone to the fridge to get something to drink, the fridge was literally less than 2 meters from the table where we seated. If he goes to the fridge, he did not go to the fridge. I'm just saying if he did, but he did not go there. There was no alcohol drank on the day.